to this court and appealed to the Privy Council. The Privy Council allowed the appellant's appeal and quashed their convictions on the basis that the trial judge's treatment of the third incident of jury misconduct was a material irregularity in the course of the trial, giving rise to a miscarriage of justice. In the Privy Council's view, the trial judge should have done more to investigate the third incident of jury misconduct and not rely solely on the forewoman's account. Furthermore, allowing Juror X to continue to serve on the jury was fatal to the safety of the convictions and was an infringement of the appellant's fundamental right to a fair hearing by an independent and impartial court under Section 16 of the Constitution of Jamaica. Lastly, the fact that the prosecution was prepared to waive the irregularities in the trial did not absolve the trial judge of his responsibility to ensure a fair trial. In all the circumstances, the trial judge ought to have discharged the jury and ended the trial in order to protect the integrity of the system of trial by jury. He ordered to face a new trial, or whether judgments and verdicts of acquittal should be entered. The court starts with the Constitution, which provides that upon conviction, a person should not be tried for a second time unless a court of superior jurisdiction, which is the appellate court, orders that there be a retrial. The Constitution did not set out the circumstances in which the court should order a retrial. It is to case law that the court looks to determine trial. The principles governing the question of a new trial, which was set out more Privy Council in the case of Reid against the Queen. We will not state 20 cases since Reid, and we have an amalgamated list of those factors. There are 12 factors that the court has considered. The seriousness and prevalence of the offense, that's one. 2, the strength of the prosecution's case. 3, the availability of the prosecution's witnesses and exhibits can be facilitated within a reasonable time. 6, the time. 7, the ordeal to be faced by the appellants if a new trial is ordered. Publicity on the fairness of a new trial, if ordered. 9, 11, potential legislative changes in the sentence for murder. 12, the possibility of prejudice arising from the mandatory minimum sentence and minimum term before eligibility for parole. We have considered all the factors governing the court's determination of whether a new trial should be ordered, and have given due regard to all the material, submissions, and evidence presented by the appellants and the Crown. We commence by stating that the egregious nature and seriousness of the offense in this case is beyond argument. So too is the prevalence of the offense of murder in Jamaica. We make a barefaced defiance of law and order involving allegation recovered, or should we say an alleged killing in which the body of the deceased has not been recovered, and interference with the role of the police. The court is therefore satisfied that the nature, seriousness, and prevalence of the alleged offense in this case, that there are several equally powerful factors which, when combined, militate against ordering a new trial. In summary, these factors are the insufficient and inadequate account by the prosecution for the availability of its witnesses and trial exhibits, are now unavailable or cannot be 64 days, and utilize a significant share of the court and the appellant's resources. Therefore, the time, financial costs, expense, and impact on the court's resources, as well as trial, we find that this is significant and it militates a medical effect that a new trial would likely have on the appellants who have already spent 13 years in custody with problems relating to the appellant Palmer, which came through medical reports that stand unchallenged by the Crown and therefore speak to declining health in the penal institution. The court looks at the lapse of time, estimation be at least 15 years. We find that to be inordinate. 6, the unjustifiable interference with the appellant's constitutional rights to a fair. Section 16 of the Constitution of Jamaica and the potential for that breach or interference, we should say continuing, if a new trial is ordered. We look at the potential prejudice to at least 2 of our eligibility for parole than that which was originally imposed upon them after their first trial due to the operation of the statutory mandatory minimum for the offense of murder. The court looks at other factors which it did not see swinging the pendulum either way. Publicity did not assist the appellants. We find that pre-trial publicity is such that you would have to prove that it is impossible to obtain a fair trial. And that question is one for the issue of pre-trial publicity is if the mechanisms have to be employed as the Crown had argued, that would add to the delay of the proceedings. As we have said, we have looked at all the other factors. What we find by now, the countervailing, the weight is against a new trial. Our judgment will echo what the court has done. Having regard to all the considerations the court has taken into account, we conclude that the interests of justice do not require a new trial to be ordered for the appellants, and we therefore make the following order. Judgments and verdicts of acquittal record. Thank our judicial clerks, Mr. George Lennon and Ms. Chanel Hunter. Had it not been for them, their assistants would not have been able to make the deadline given the workload of the court and the various things that we had to do over the past. It leaves us to thank counsel on both sides for your spirited, maybe sometimes combative arguments, but we have learned tremendously from both sides, and we hope that the judgment will show that we appreciated the scholarship and appreciated the issues for resolution. So that is it. The appellants are freed.
Welcome back. So Justice Marva MacDonald Bishop, the President of the Court of Appeal, delivering the Court of Appeal's decision, essentially freeing Vybz Kartel, Shawn Campbell, Kahira Jones, and Andre.
Watching who is not clear. The court has ordered that the 4 men should be freed, that verdicts of acquittal should be entered, which means they are going to be free. There's not going to be a retrial. So let's just say that up front. Now, the strongest to be the fact that this was alleged to have been an extremely heinous murder, gruesome circumstances, and in a high crime environment like Jamaica, there's always going to be an argument to be made that the seriousness of the
and
offense.
bareface she used, yes.
Bareface, and she said bears a hallmark of a deliberate attack on and a barefaced defense on law and order. So she made that point. About the first thing she mentioned was the issue of the availability of evidence and the exhibits.
Exhibits, yes.
So what happened was that during the hearing into whether or not there should be a retrial, one of the attorneys representing the men, John Clark, raised the point that the exhibits that had been available in the first trial, that they needed to be, that had been produced or that had been brought in at the first trial, but he said only 14 of those had been verified as being available for a retrial. He said among the ones that had not been verified were some of the most important. The DVD that contained the video that was alleged to have been of the murder, as well as the DVD that contained the voice notes that I know a lot of people heard about, the voice notes.
Which were circulated on WhatsApp and so on, yes.
And that's a lot of allegations. The judge, and obviously that's going to be huge because those are critical aspects of the evidence. In addition, the defense also said that some of the, why can't they be found? Did they disappear? Did somebody thief them? What happened?
Yeah, I mean, the chain of custody.
And then the president also mentioned the issue of witnesses. And again, she had been asking about that during the retrial hearing. She had indicated assertion that their witnesses were available for a retrial. You know, she was saying she wanted to see, for instance, my words, not hers. I called Milton. Milton says, yes, he'll come. I called Dion. Dion says, yes, he'll come. Yes, she'll come. And she was saying she wasn't getting that kind of detail in terms of the availability of the witnesses. And you saw her mention that as an issue, and that clearly is going to be an issue if you're talking about a retrial where you're depending on a sole eyewitness and all these very...
It would be now 15 years.
That was based on the fact that the men have been in custody now for nearly 13 years, and they were trying to figure out how long it would likely be before a retrial. So they had asked the Supreme Court, you know, the matters that we have sent to you for retrial, what has happened to them? And what they heard was that 2 matters had been sent, one in 2022, one in 2023, and neither of them, October 2022, October 2023, neither of them had yet been tried. So the Court of Appeal was saying, okay, so this perhaps will give an indication, which is why she said they're estimating probably another 2 years before you could have a retrial, which means that the men would then have been in custody for 15 years in all. And then that she was saying as well in relation to 2 of the men, because of a change in the law now has a mandatory minimum. I have to check the exact amount. Sorry, I should have checked that before. It's supposed to happen.
Why would that be so when the crime was committed, the law was at a particular point, when the law at that time was for the mandatory minimum sentencing law wasn't in place?
I'm not sure.
No, I'm saying, why would that be a factor?
Oh, they're saying that
even though
because
the crime
remember
was
it's
committed.
Going back to a retrial, so you're going to have a trial all over again. But I understand we now have our colleague Dwayne.
Dwayne Anderson is outside the Court of Appeal in Justice Square. Dwayne, tell us what's happening there.
Thank you so much, Milton. Well, as you can imagine, for a matter that has been going on for about 14 years, not a lot of people were aware that there was a monumental development in the case today. So really a small crowd gathered here in Justice Square in downtown Kingston. But when news is fans, she's here almost every day. There's a matter involving Vybz Kartel, and she's literally cried tears when things have not gone his way in this matter. She now joins me. Sandy, your immediate reaction to Vybz Kartel being freed by the court?
Yeah, I'm not lie, I'm glad, I'm happy, I'm glad the boss free time come. A long time now them for free the boss. I'm thank the court system. I'm glad Kartel free today. Big up yourself, Kartel. My foot sick and me have to come out, come represent for you today straight. Little while to all me boss free today time come. Over 18 years no man time come today. My talk it and it happen. I know the boss did I go free today. Free. I come with good luck, I don't come with bad luck. I know say the artist did I go free. Anything I say go. That. Anything I say, did have to come today straight. Anybody who God bless, no man curse, right?
That you're not just here by yourself, but you're also here with your mommy. What does Kartel mean to you and your mother, really, why you all came here from Dwayne Park?
Well, I not lie, my mother and Kartel Marcel born January, and my mother always say she and the boss born January. So you don't know. My day who my mother say, you know, say I feel like mother go down with the court there today. I say, come mommy, oh you mean we are going to represent straight because the boss are come today and see that happen.
Final question for you, Sandy. What would be your advice to your favorite entertainer for the first thing he's supposed to do when he comes out on the road?
Well, family time, build up them time, the back, and you don't know, just be safe and keep yourself out of trouble. And you know what, them way they keep prayed up, same way, you know, big up yourself. Well, you don't know party after that and the party thing and lock, you don't know right show, anything anyway.
Now, as I mentioned, a small crowd really gathered here in downtown Kingston this morning, meaning it was a relatively incident-free, well, so far for the security personnel who took out all the stops to ensure that, you know, security was beefed up here in Justice Square. Behind me, persons who are looking on can see that several police officers and proceed peacefully here today, and things have been going peacefully. It's really a hot day, and maybe that is part of the reason not a lot of people came out. A lot of the persons who said that they came here to see what was happening, they did allude to the heat, and you know, persons don't really want to come out here and risk getting, you know, a heat stroke just for a matter that doesn't necessarily involve them personally. Now, I'll be here monitoring what happened as it relates to outside the court, and I'll be sure to share it with you, Milton.
Dwayne Anderson, thank you. Dwayne Anderson reporting live from Justice Square. Dion, Justice McDonald Bishop also raised the issue of the psychological who has been gravely ill with, I think it's grave disease.
The defense had brought medical reports and affidavits from doctors attesting to Cartel in particular, his physical deterioration, his mental deterioration as well was a factor. And the other side has medical evidence, you know, medical evidence coming from medical doctors, from physicians. Why would you not also have an affidavit from a prison doctor if it is that you're trying to challenge what they're saying? And, you know, why not meet like with like? What are we supposed to do really with medical evidence, quote unquote, from a prison? So wasn't counted, and they went into a great deal of detail in terms of, as you mentioned, the issue not just of Graves' disease, we were told psychological impact. We heard that in respect of all the men, but this emphasis in terms of mental and physical deterioration, I think, was most marked and most pronounced and most argued in the situation with Vybz Kartel.
We had heard legal experts had said that the prosecution's case presented at the Court of Appeal was pretty weak, and many persons were surprised at that they didn't seem to prepare a very strong case.
Well, there are a number of things that, when you're talking about pivotal evidence, in relation to the issue, for instance, of the impact, that issue that the Justice McDonald Bishop mentioned about the ordeal on the men.
Yes.
And the prosecution now was trying to make the case that, and at that point, when the acting DPP started to go into that a little bit more, she was stopped by the judge who said, hold on, there's no affidavit evidence in front of us on that point. So apparently there hadn't been any affidavit evidence filed from relatives of Lizard Williams, for instance, to say what they had been going through and what it is that this kind of situation, the murder, the reports of the murder, the whole situation, the impact it had on them. Lawyer that should have been in affidavit evidence. So that I was a bit surprised at as well.
And there seemed to be years before a possible trial.
The Supreme Court had said, to be fair, that they can't fast-track cases, but one of the questions that Justice McDonald Bishop was asking consistently throughout the hearing was, what makes this case so special? She was pointing out, for instance, that one of the cases that was still awaiting retrial was a case in which a businessman was alleged to have killed the mother of his child in gruesome circumstances. But then you look at this other case awaiting retrial, what's the basis on which you're going to say, let's jump the cartel case to the front of the queue before those other matters that are also extremely important, and also especially given the fact that 64 days, one of the longest trials in Jamaican history, and the defense lawyers had indicated at the retrial hearing that there were some motions they intended to make, there were some challenges they intended to make that would likely mean that a retrial would be even longer than the first trial. So you have to the front of the queue would be pushed even back. More of the court's resources have to be devoted to this.
I was also struck that she mentioned in some detail, one, that the trial would be complex, but the it will take a lot of court time and resources. I would have thought in the pursuit of justice, it didn't matter. Those factors wouldn't really matter.
Well, I'm looking forward to reading the judgment in terms of how it is there for.
Pause there for a minute because we're now joined by Anthony Lugg, who is in Gaza City. That's where Cartel is from, in Waterford in Portmore, St. Catherine. Anthony, good afternoon.
Thank you. So, jubilation here in Waterford in Portmore, St. Catherine. With pure excitement, we're under the watchful eyes of the security forces. However, as news just came out of the ruling from the afternoon.
Well, everybody's similar reaction. And it's not just this afternoon. It's from the beginning and now it's the end. And the end is the best. And out of the worst is the best, and that we get today.
All right. Gavin, earlier I was speaking to you. You said to me it's been some long 13 years. You know, what has it been like for you, and how do you move forward now, hearing that Adidja Palmer is free?
Well, but he's like a brother when he's here, and when I'm with him now, he's out here now. What could I say? Nothing but happiness.
All right. Happiness. I'm hearing about party later. Talk to me about that.
No, I didn't hear about the party.
All right. Thank you very much. Well, Gavin said he doesn't know about any party, but I can tell you scores of people are telling us that a lot of people are at work now.
Thank you. And Dion, just for our viewers, what happens next in terms of the men? They'll be free today. Is there anything else that needs to be done?
Well, there's some paperwork that's going to have to be done, so it depends on how quickly they get through that as to exactly when they'll walk free. I should say, Milton, that I know there are going to be concerns about the decision. I've already heard some of them. People are going to be...
Hang on. I'm told that there's an incident outside the court in Justice Square. You're seeing live pictures there. If we could hear the sound there of the square right there on King Street, but it seems that persons having heard the ruling have come out. But Dion, you're saying? Mm-hmm.
Well, I should just say the men are not in court. It's not like a trial where the men would be in the dock and the verdict would be handed down. The appellate process doesn't require the appellants themselves to be in court.
Right.
So
penal facility.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Now, in addition, I was saying there are going to be concerns about this decision. There are people who are going to think that the decision is wrong, and that's perfectly legitimate. Courts aren't sacrosanct. You're allowed to criticize them. I would just remind people, though, that the men have spent 13 years in custody. So it's not that, there's absolutely nothing that has happened here. So we are awaiting the summation, the summary that the president of the Court of Appeal indicated would be getting hopefully now or in a short time, as well as the written judgment to really delve into it and to be able to say whether or not we do agree with the way in which they weighted it.
Right. And we're standing by to get an interview with the attorney for Vybz Kartel, Mr. Isaac Buchanan, but we're just awaiting him exiting the court. Right, so he has been surrounded by the crowd, so we're waiting on to be able to get closer to Isaac Buchanan so we can bring that interview to you.
I should tell you that one of the points that was made at the hearing, the retrial court, the length of the court matter on them, and they were arguing that the men were now, in fact, financially, what should I say, stressed.
Or worse off, yes.
There you go, as a result of, because legal fees are expensive. And one of the things that they were saying is that, basically they've had to go to legal aid to get representation at this particular stage. And, there was a little bit of a moment there in court. But just a reminder that Isaac Buchanan, in fact, had gone to the Court of Appeal. They'll be getting a whole lot of props for this. John Clark as well, I can tell you, who argued a lot of the matter as well at the Court of Appeal retrial hearing. Also, very, very, very significant submissions made by him.
He's really like a hero to the crowd. I'm told that Dwayne Anderson has Isaac Buchanan now. Dwayne, go ahead. it's really would be a little challenging.
Milton. Well, as you can imagine, the crowd has grown substantially in the last 5 minutes. So much so that defense for Vybz Kartel, he was flocked by people to a hero's welcome. Trust me when I tell you, I had to almost wrestle him out of the crowd to get this interview live. Isaac, you're successful. The justice system worked today?
The justice system works. The starting point is always God. God and time, and we saw it happen today.
What was the clincher for you? What was the clincher for you? What decided it?
The deciding factor, as the court made it clear, it was the health of Mr. Palmer, the absence of the witnesses, the absence of the exhibits, the absence of our most significant witness, as well as when you put it all together, the length of time, the breach of the constitutional rights, all of it overwhelmed, and the delay was what caused it to be the judgment of acquittal entered.
Well, let's delve into a couple of those. Tell us about Vybz Kartel's health right now.
His release. Our expectation is that he will be released today.
How bad is his condition?
Well, you heard a month ago his heart function was instantly.
And let's talk about now some of the exhibits missing and some of the crucial material needed missing. Is that an indictment on the justice system?
No, I'm not putting it. We are not indicting the justice system. We can't have our cake and eat it too. The justice system works. And I can tell you, under the guidance of Justice Sykes and now our Madam President, Jamaica has a father and a mother going into emancipation.
You've taken a few losses in this matter, over the build-up, but you've basically won the war, and the people showed you that love just now.
In this case alone, Mr. Chavaria was my student at the University of the West Indies. This case takes so long, he became an attorney, and he's on the matter, and he did very great work. Mr. Clark, Mr. LaBeach, Mr. Tom Tavares Simpson, Bert Samuels, Miss Valerie Nita Robinson, Mr. Help me with all of the names. Listen, there were so much, Michael Lorne, Pierre Rogers, every attorney that was a part of this matter did the work. The attorneys in the UK, we all worked together to ensure that justice was served. We have a justice system where innocent men are in prison, and we have to start an innocent project to make sure that we review these cases and that we give effect to the Constitution. That is what's on my mind right now.
When they say that the men are freed, can we expect to see them out this evening, tomorrow morning? When?
Certainly, it should be done by today, no matter what happens. And if they do, the prison is to do all that they can, and they usually do. Mr. Campbell, once he gets the order,
but obviously his fans would want to. They've not been able to speak to him and hear from him. Any plans for a party anytime soon, or what is his health like that will make it possible?
I don't want to get myself in any problems, but the medical team need to be on standby, and everybody need to see them. That's all I know.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Chevera, you can have a quick word with us. You can have a quick word with us. Just come around here a little bit. Yes, because we're live and we want Jamaica to be able to see the persons who participated in the case. Tell us about your involvement and what you believe was really the clincher.
Certainly, it was a team effort. We started from the beginning and realized that the men needed individual attention. So that is why Mr. Buchanan and Senior on the team, we decided that we're going to separate the team. Certainly, the clincher for us was the health situation of Mr. Palmer and also the prolonged delay that took place in this matter. And certainly, this is not a one-off circumstance, and other young men in Jamaica can get the benefit of swift justice as these appellants were awarded.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on Television Jamaica, and congratulations to you and your team. Take care. Good. Well, as you can imagine, the news travels pretty fast, and what was really a very small crowd about 30 minutes ago has exploded to just by my estimate, about 1,000 people. It's like they popped out of the ground as news surfaced that, listen, Vybz Kartel will be freed. And as his defense be out of prison this evening. So we'll be monitoring that and see what happens. It's back to you, Milton.
Okay, Dwayne Anderson reporting live from Justice Square. Dion, what struck you from what Isaac said about from his perspective about today's.
So he doesn't have any reason to raise questions about what happened. But when he said the justice system works, again, I have to point to some of the really egregious things that happened in this case, to the treatment of the exhibits at trial, the fact that a cell phone belonging to cartel that was in the custody of the police was used to make calls while in police custody, and to the fact that, as I'm saying, some of these critical exhibits were not verified as available for retrial, and we need an explanation from whether the police, the prosecution, but there needs to be an explanation to the people of Jamaica as to what happened in this case. Surely in such a case that would have been under the microscope, you would have expected every I to be dotted, every T to be crossed, and for this kind of blatant carelessness to put it at...
Some of that carelessness in quotation marks from the trial, and to come now at the end stage when you're presenting the case before the Court of Appeal, not to, have some basic things lined up.
Yeah. Isaac was making the point that he's hoping it can happen today because, and indeed, in a matter like this, I would expect them to be walking down the judgment, actually waiting for it to be finally prepared at the Court of Appeal and then actually carried down to the prison system. And once they get that order from the court, then they would be able to release them. So we'll see what happens there.
Tell me, he did say that his heart was now 32%, so he seems to have had some deterioration, because I think he had said it was about 50%.
He had said 50% worse than last year. So I don't know where he is now, but I mean, clearly the court was convinced by the medical evidence and the medical reports that were submitted. He
also mentioned that, I'm not sure if he'll be championing that Jamaica needs an innocence project, which is, a lot of in the United States, our students have gone through and looked back at the case. They've found material evidence which obviously, or in many cases, lead to acquittal after, 10, 20, even 30 years in prison.
Yeah, it's something I follow in the United States. I think it's an absolutely wonderful project. But and it's interesting to hear Isaac raise it. I've never heard it raised in the Jamaican context before. The Innocent Project, though, only takes cases that can be proven by virtue of DNA. Do we preserve DNA? How well do we preserve DNA? Can you, find cartel case exhibit 1? Can you find the DNA? I don't know if that's something he's going to be pursuing. We, of course, do have legal aid here, but in terms of the kind of process he's speaking about, where you actually carry out investigation into a case to determine whether or not there had been an incorrect finding of guilt, personally, something I would certainly be interested to see.
Indeed. And he also mentioned the delay, Isaac, that is, as one. He said health, the absence of witnesses and exhibit, and the delay. Those are the three main points that he cited.
I should have mentioned as well, when I was talking about the issue of availability of witnesses and the court's concern about whether the prosecution witnesses would be available, one of the defense's chief witness has actually died. And that was their handwriting expert, who has that as a significant concern as to how they would be able to meet a trial, to respond in a trial if indeed a retrial is ordered.
So do you think the DPP's office, the acting DPP, ought to come and address the nation, speak in a press conference or stuff about some of the issues which were thrown up by this case? That would be...
Well, I'm in media, so I'd love to see a press conference or something of that nature. Whatever the indication I've got is that we're unlikely to see something of that nature, but that we are likely to see a response coming out from the office, and I think we'll
in a statement, perhaps.
But as I said, some of these questions that I've been raising do need to be answered, so we'll look to see what it is the office says.
And of course, folks, we'll have more on the freeing of Vybz Kartel and the three others in Primetime News and Beyond the Headlines. Dion will be on Primetime News giving us some more analysis, and I'm not sure if we'll get the written judgment by then. And she, of course, would be on Radio Jamaica on Beyond the Headlines, where we'll be delving more into the case and speaking, of course, to some of the attorneys and possibly someone from at 8:30 on TVJ and onespotmedia.com. We'll have a 1 full hour to go through the case, and she'll have all the attorneys and legal experts who will be there to break it down for our viewers later. Dion, your final thoughts?
I think this case has been a really significant one for the justice system. It's thrown up a number of issues. I've been speaking about the issue of the exhibits and how that has been treated. This issue of the juror misconduct, though, has also a significant loophole in our legal system, because if it's left as is, if we don't correct this, what it means is that anybody can go and bribe a juror, and then the case is going to have to be thrown out. You're going to have the trial end and a new trial start. Right. And we did get an indication at the Privy Council, for instance, their suggestion as to how that could be dealt with his legislative amendment to say that if a jury has to be discharged, then the case can continue with a judge alone. Currently, in our system, if you discharge a jury, the case has to end. And I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. I am surprised that Parliament has not already acted to close that gap that currently exists, and I think that needs to be one of our first priorities right now.
Any other lessons you think we can take away from this case?
I want to see what the Court of Appeal said about publicity, because a lot was made about this in the retrial hearing, but we heard the President say that the arguments about publicity didn't help the appellants. They had been arguing that the publicity in the matter was so extensive, there's no way they would be able to get a fair trial, and we heard the President there assert really the current position in law, which is that once you can find a jury or some jurors who in fact can render a fair verdict, that the publicity is not going to mean that you can't have a fair trial. I think that's really important in the social media age, in the celebrity age, because otherwise, how would we be able to try celebrities?
Right. Tell me, and somebody's sent a message to me, is this the end? Final end? This case?
Yeah,
does the prosecution have any recourse in law?
No, man, this was a decision for a retrial. As to retrial, this is it. Nobody's going any further with this one. That's it. Moving on to the next one.
Can't remount a case or anything, no?
Well, remember, this is a verdict of acquittal that's going to be entered. Once you've been acquitted of a particular charge, you can't be tried again for the same charge, because that would be double jeopardy. Which is why it's important for that verdict of acquittal to be entered, because that then puts a full stop to the case, that draws a line under it. This one is finished.
Indeed. Well, lots of reactions we're getting in, and I know there are a lot of persons, as you said, are disappointed with this case. And of course, Cartel has huge fan base here and abroad. I see persons from the United States, the Caribbean, messaging me about this case. So there's huge public interest in this case right from the very start. But thank you so much, Dion, for your expert analysis in this case. This has been our special report on the Court of Appeal's decision to free Vybz Kartel and is three co-accused: Shawn Campbell, Kahira Jones,